Fine, okay. Welcome back, everybody. Hearing stream 4, Murray Purpose Zone. This is session number 2, and we're about to hear from the representative of the Murray trustee, Mr. Cooper. Welcome, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for coming in a bit earlier. We're running quite a bit ahead of time today. We've had a bit of disruption this morning with a change in venue. So a little bit on the fly at the moment, so we appreciate you accommodating us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Cooper, your statement was lodged in the last 48 hours, I think.
On Thursday?
Some of us haven't had the opportunity to read it in full, and I wondered whether you wanted to take us through the salient points of, and we can stop at each one and then take questions on that point if you like. Does that work?
Sure. Okay, yeah. So I could read the statement that I provided.
Yes, the parts that you might want to skip over, but yes, we were happy for you to read it.
Okay, we'll do that then.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like me to begin?
Yes, yes, please.
Right, okay. So starting from the top, introduction, because I previously spoke at hearing stream 1 relating to the strategic directions, just assume that you know who I am and who I'm representing.
Absolutely. No, unless anything's changed.
No, nothing in that respect has changed. Pardon the slightly croaky throat. And then I'll go down to paragraph 7.
Yep.
So my trustee in developing our submission points, we have engaged with the Rangatani o Wairapa and Ngāti Kanunu ki Wairapa as mana whenua. And at the time of our submission, made in December 2023, and then since the filing of this current statement for hearing stream 4 in the Murray Purpose Zone, we did have a meeting with mana whenua representatives from Rangatani o Wairapa and Ngāti Kanunu ki Wairapa, and just for your record in terms of that meeting, when we met, we only met on Friday afternoon, and the Rangatani o Wairapa and Ngāti Kanunu ki Wairapa representatives indicated that they don't currently support the Murray trustees' proposed wording and definitions relating to Māori land and papakainga. And there was slight support for our climate change objective wording, but however, in the conclusion of our hui to talk about our submission points, they said they were both open to exploring alternative wording for us in the future about definitions. So that's just mainly in relation to paragraph 8 and 7 of the introductory statement.
Yes.
And I'll move on to paragraph 9. So the Murray trustee respectfully considers the following matters not adequately resolved within the officer's reports, and that is A, the impacts of climate change in relation to owners of Māori land, B, a definition for Māori land, and C, amending the definition of papakainga. And then paragraph 10, for all other submission points relevant to this hearing stream, the Murray trustee accepts the recommendations made in the officer's report.
Thank you for making that point. That's important. I appreciate that.
Okay. And then hearing stream 1, officers' reply statements, paragraph 11. At the close of hearing stream 1, officers issued reply statements for each hearing topic, including whole of plan definitions, part 1 matters, strategic direction, and tangata whenua. The Murray trustees' submission points relating to the definitions for Māori land and papakainga were not directly addressed in the officer's reply statements. Paragraph 13. The Murray trustees' submission points to include an additional strategic direction objective under climate change and resilience was addressed in the officer's reply statement for strategic direction. However, as noted below, the Māori trustee does not agree with the officer's assessment.
Thank you for that. And so you still wish to pursue the relief of the additional effective.
Yes, we do, and we do wish to seek relief for the definitions for Māori land and Papakainga as well.
Yes.
Just that we know that we need to do some further work with mana whenua representatives in terms of whether we can have a joint agreement about definitions at this stage.
Sure.
So in terms of proposed climate change and resilience objective within the Māori Purpose Zone, 14, the Māori trustee respectfully disagrees with the officer's assessment that including a proposed objective within the Māori Purpose Zone to directly address the impacts of climate change on owners of Māori land would be inefficient, unnecessary, or a duplication. 15, the proposal to add a climate change and resilience objective to the Māori Purpose Zone chapter will ensure that the climate change and resilience strategic direction objectives are appropriately supported throughout the proposed plan and complement the overall objectives of the proposed plan. 16. Embedding complementary objectives and policies at a zone level allows for the unique characteristics and specific challenges of land within that zone to be appropriately captured in planning decisions. This approach will promote sustainable management practices as well as enhance the overall resilience of the Wairarapa. On the page 17, including a zone-specific objective in the Māori Purpose Zone would also more efficiently target Māori land, which is disproportionately at greater risks from climate change effects than general land. And Māori trustees' proposed wording for this objective is set out in Appendix 1 of the statement.
Yes. Can I just ask you to pause there, and we'll take questions on this first issue first.
Certainly.
I'm happy to. Anyone else?
You go first.
Okay. First, before I ask a question about an objective or a climate change and resilience objective within the Māori Purpose Zone itself, can I just ask you to could you just remind the panel what the additional strategic objective, direction objective under the climate change and resilience matter in hearing stream 1 was that the Māori trustee was pursuing?
What we were pursuing was an objective, and if I turn to Appendix 1 of this statement, because it's the same wording.
Same wording. Okay.
And on the top of the page, which has been given a notation MPZ-OX, Climate Adaptation and Retreat, and we sought in our submission to for the wording, owners of Māori land are empowered to become resilient so that they can build adaptive capacity using mātauranga Māori, accurate data and information to support informed decision making where climate adaptation and retreat processes are implemented.
Okay. So, excuse me if I've got this wrong. That was also the wording for the proposed strategic objective. Also, was
yes.
it?
And
yes.
It was commented on in the officer's report for strategic directions that wording like that could be used for the Māori Purpose Zone.
Okay.
And we agreed that it could be used in our statement.
Yes. So, Mr. Cooper, would you accept that it's an either-or situation, that it could either sit within the strategic objectives or it could sit in the Māori Purpose Zone, and if that's the case, that then becomes a question as which home is the most appropriate?
My professional opinion is that it would be more appropriate for it to be within the Māori Purpose Zone. However, we would have to have some further discussions within our team about that stage. But for now, professionally consider that it is better placed to be within the Māori purpose zone in terms of the issues that Māori landowners are going to face going forward.
Okay. It seems that from reading the 42A report, one of the issues that Mr. Wesney has with including this objective in the Māori purpose zone is that he doesn't believe that it would necessarily be efficient or effective, and that to be consistent, similar objectives might need to be included in other zones to ensure that they do the sort of mahi also to contribute towards climate resilience. What's your response to that?
With respect, Mr. Chair, the Māori purpose zone proposed faces potential for considerably more effects of climate change and effects induced by climate change, and so would benefit from a specific objective that provided for Māori landowners to have support and understanding how they can manage their whenua to and their future aspirations to mitigate those effects. We did, at the Māori Trustees Office of Te Maparo, did an assessment of our land blocks and Māori land across Wairarapa generally, where we found that approximately 30% of Māori-owned land classified as low slope could be potentially affected by climate-induced weather adverse effects, and approximately 90% of the land that the Māori Trustee manages has a low slope component and could potentially be affected by climate change induced effects. So on that basis, we felt that it would be pertinent to pursue having an objective relating to climate change resilience for owners within the Māori purpose zone. And in respect to other zones, because of this proposed plan's creation of a Māori purpose zone that relates to providing for Māori to undertake more nuanced development on their whenua in terms of the zone objectives, that's more important where their land is more proscribed in terms of the amount of areas they have, as opposed to, say, the surrounding rural general zone, as a comparison of why doesn't that zone have a climate change and resilience objective?
Yes.
Because the emphasis for that zone in terms of the writing of the plan, as I see it professionally, is that it's more around the type of land use activities and managing conflict between activities, and there are complementary, say, overlays that rest over that zone that account for climate change induced effects to manage that particular issue as well. Whereas for the Māori purpose zone, it's a far more, it's got that grey colour, that means it's a special purpose zone, and it is far smaller and far more restricted in terms of where those blocks are. And it just so happens that many of those blocks, land parcels, are in places where they're going to be more potentially impacted by climate-induced weather events.
Understood. Let's see if there's any further questions on that particular topic. Nothing am I right? No? Okay. Would you like to move on to the second issue, and that's the definition of Maori land?
Certainly. And so paragraph 19. The Māori Trustees' submission point requesting a definition for Māori land is addressed in the officer's report at pages 15 and 16, paragraphs 76 to 83. 20. With respect, the Māori Trustee considers that the officer's report fails to address the key reasons why the Māori Trustee proposed adding a definition of Māori land to the proposed plan. 21. Currently, the officer's report recommends, in lieu of including a definition of Māori land, to amend the tangata whenua strategic objectives to add hapu and whānau after each reference to rangatane o Wairarapa and Kahanunu ki Wairarapa to be more inclusive. 22. The Māori trustee is concerned that the use of hapu and whānau is, in this context, unclear and will rely on an assessment by council staff who will naturally defer to iwi registration or confirmation to establish this. Not only do these words not directly engage on ownership of Māori land, but ignore that the sole source of truth to determine ownership of Māori freehold land is through Māori land court records. 23. As such, the approach proposed in the officer's report does not adequately capture owners of Māori freehold land who may comprise multiple whānau or hapu. We note that other submitters have also sought that owners of Māori land be provided for in the proposed plan. 24. Māori landowners within the rohe will almost certainly whakapapa to the rangatane o Wairarapa and Ngāti Karanunu ki Wairarapa, but may not be registered members. Relying on iwi registration to determine who has access to Māori land development provisions within the proposed plan, such as the permitted activity rules, MPZ R1 through to R10, is too simplistic, as some Māori landowners will not be registered members. 25. There is no reason why owners of Māori freehold land within the rohe should be potentially excluded from the same consenting pathways to develop their whenua simply because they are not registered members of an iwi. Māori landowners have had their whakapapa connection to their lands confirmed by the Māori Land Court by way of succession order. Ownership of Māori land can easily be checked and records obtained through Pātaka Whenua, the Māori Land Court's website. It would be useful for the proposed plan to note that establishing evidence of whakapapa is wider than iwi registration. 26. The Māori trustee considers that a definition of Māori land provided within her original submission as set out in Appendix 1 addresses this gap and is necessary to ensure owners of Māori land will be able to access Māori land development provisions within the proposed plan. Would you like to stop there, Mr. Chair?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sure there's going to be some questions on this. I will start with Fraser.
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, you mentioned earlier that the Rangatani or Rangatani Tūmara Trust, Ngāti Kahanunu, ki Wairarapa, that they weren't in agreement and wholly with this definition. Can you outline the points where there's some disagreement, please?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chair. So in terms of our hui that we held on Friday afternoon with a representative from Rangatane o Wairarapa, and that was Mihirangi Hollings, and with Ngāti Kahanunu ki Wairarapa, which was with Raymond Hall, the two representatives felt that the definition, pardon? Okay.
Oh, good.
The definitions that the Māori trustee had proposed were restrictive or prescriptive, and did not provide for hapu and whānau, did not empower their hapu. However, there could have been a problem with how I was trying to translate the meaning to the representatives, but it's always been the Māori trustees' intention to make it easier for Māori landowners, and that includes hapu and whānau, that there should be no additional barriers and hurdles to be able to undertake development on their land, which was the basis for the Māori landowner land definition and the Papakangi definition. So at the end of our hui, there was a potential for some further meetings to occur through looking at rewriting the definition to incorporate what was being expressed by the Rangatani o Wairarapa and Ngāti Kahanunu ki Wairarapa representatives.
Thank you. Alistair?
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, I'll ask the same question I asked of our officers, that this plan is effectively a point-in-time plan. Would you agree with that? That the rules are as effect with a certain date. And in your definition, I completely understand part B and C and D, but part A seems to be very open-ended and allows for land definition as a very flexible thing, which doesn't fit concisely within a plan that is determined by a date and time. Any comment to that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The proposed plan is definitely at a point in time because, as Mr. Wesley will well know, the previous first generation combined plan did not have anything on Papa Kainga or a Māori purpose zone per se. And it predated the Treaty of Waitangi settlements that related to Rangatane o Wairarapa and Ngāti Kahungunu Wairarapa. And that brings me into the point that the definition that the Māori Trustee has developed for Māori land incorporates the sort of aspirations that Māori land is not just around Māori freehold land or customary land. It could also apply to land provided for to post-government settlement entities in terms of recognising aspirations for land that they want to develop. So that's why we've developed a definition in parts A, B, and C, and D to incorporate that. And we felt that this wasn't adequately expressed through the proposed plan currently to recognise those different types of land as important to Māori.
So if the plan is an operative plan for 10 years, part A of your definition means that the entities could purchase new land or new holdings or whatever over the period of the plan, and then have them designated over that 10-year period as Māori land. Do you see what I mean? So it's not a point in time. It's an open-ended thing, which then has other implications for councils in terms of how things are rated, so on and so forth. So I suppose for me to make this a little bit more comfortable for me, would have a point in time on your definition. So, for example, something along the lines of paragraph A might be with effect signing of this plan, or the date at the date of the plan, sort of thing. So that there's a fixed point, and then if land is purchased after that date, you have to wait till you either do a plan change or you wait until the next rendition of the plan to bring that into Māori land, if that's what was wanted to be determined. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I see your point around a point of time, and also I sort of recognise that through the development of the proposed Māori purpose zone, there has been discussions around how future Māori land would be incorporated. And I think there has been some discussions around, well, land maybe not identified now would potentially have to go through a plan change process as well to become Māori purpose zone land. So I see your point of view. We would have to have some further discussions about whether, in terms of within our team and the Māori Trustee, about whether we agree or not, whether there has to be a date point set down.
Robin.
Mr. Cooper, a question around proposed definition of Māori land. Can you highlight how this definition from the Māori Trustee compares with other definitions and other district plans nationally?
I could try. I have limited experience. I know that from my colleagues in my team that this same definition was developed for the proposed Tai Te Potini West Coast plan through work with Ngāi Tahu, and that was in the as notified plan, which is still currently going through the hearing process. I can't offer any knowledge about other district plans in terms of a definition for Māori land.
Okay, thank you.
I'm right, thanks. Yeah, good.
Yep, I just want to, kia ora, Mr. Cooper. I just want to kind of carry on with the theme around Māori land definition, and understanding that you had the CE, the two CEs of one of the Rangitane Runanga and the other one of the PSG, Kānuni ki Wairarapa Tāmaki Nui Aroa, to have a discussion about your definitions. Would it have been more helpful if you had engaged with the pautikanga of those iwi rather than the two CEs, whose role mainly is operational and management, and one who is very new to his role from another iwi? Would it have been more beneficial for you to have engaged at that level with the pautikanga rather than the current group that you did?
Yes, I would like to respond that it would definitely be most beneficial to have a wider engagement with the senior teams in the Rangatane o Wairarapa and Nakanu ki Wairarapa, and in terms of their pautikanga. We put out an invite for engagement earlier on, and from the Māori Trustees office, and we had to make changes to plans in terms of being able to get a date and who to engage with, and personnel that were available for us to hui with. And we recognise that our definition is not necessarily the final say on what could be the best solution. So we are definitely open to engaging with others in Rangatane and Ngāti Kanunu in their post-settlement government entities or their their iwi trusts.
Okay. My second question to you is about the Māori freehold land that Te Tunu Pairo takes care of in our rohe. I know that you can't find owners, or that's what the trust's role is to look after that land and in lieu of until the owners reveal themselves or whatever. Is that list that you have for those lands, have you been in discussion with any of the PWCDPs around how we can resolve that to actually bring those whānau into this discussion?
If it's okay with the panel, Mr. Chair, I would like to bring in my manager, Vanessa Griffiths, who has a lot more better knowledge around that particular question. Would that be all right?
Absolutely fine.
Okay, and Vanessa's on screen now, so I'll let her.
Vanessa Griffiths, Asset Manager for Tumu Paroa. We look after the trust in several different relationships. So we either hold the trust as responsible trustee and or an agency trustee. We're a responsible trustee with advisory trustees or just responsible trustee by ourselves. In general, we know our ownership lists and obviously due to succession within the Māori Land Court, sometimes some of those owners haven't had their land succeeded to. So in those cases, they still might be held with an ownership for a deceased party where the family hasn't succeeded to the land. So generally, that's where we don't know who the owners have not succeeded to that parcel of land. But we hold within our system our ownership lists, and we also have a system called My Whenua, where you register your interest, your qualified interest, and you can see all of the ownerships of the lands that you hold. So that's how we communicate with our owners. We communicate through email, mail, and My Whenua. So whenever we have a submission, we post it up onto My Whenua, and we ask for feedback from owners. And we also have, as a responsible trustee, we have a trust order, and a part of that trust order sets out that we have to have meetings at set intervals. And that meeting process means that meeting invites go out to all the owners, and in those processes of the meetings, the agenda, we always discuss what is relevant and happening in that environment. I'm not sure if that totally answers your question.
It might be a follow-up question, I think.
Yeah. Oh, kia ora, Vanessa. Thank you for that. So because you have the list of the whānau, was a question put up on your website about their views around a definition of Māori land?
We haven't directly said that. So in our submission, you'll see in our full submission, we've stated that the Māori trustees' views are not always the views that are seen by the owners. And so we haven't directly sent out that definition to the owners. It's a definition that we pursue on behalf of them to ensure that they don't have additional barriers and hurdles.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Joe. Anything further? No? Julianne?
Kia ora. I take you back to when you talked about that the tangata of the whenua didn't support your definitions and that you were open to discussing more with them. Do you see that the mana of the whenua does lie with the tangata of the whenua, in this case the two PSGs that you were talking to?
I think from
That?
I think from my understanding is that they saw the definition as being very prescriptive, and their intention with the hapu and whānau is to empower hapu and whānau. And so that's exactly what we're intending to do, having Māori freehold land in there. So they didn't necessarily want them, hapu and whānau, to have to go through iwi to be able to use the provisions within the plan. And that's what the intention of including Māori freehold landowners within that definition is saying they've already succeeded, they've been through a succession order, they've been through the Māori Land Court, they already have proved their whakapapa to the Māori land, therefore they shouldn't have to, if you leave the definition at the moment, it defaults back to tangata whenua, and tangata whenua in the RMA does not include Māori freehold landowners. And so what we are trying to say is Māori freehold landowners have already got a title, they've already proved their whakapapa through succession orders in the Māori Land Court, therefore they should be able to use those provisions within the plan without having to, in addition, be registered to an iwi, and adding that additional hurdle in there. And from what I understand the meeting, I wasn't at the meeting on Friday, but this is the same view that Rangatani and Kahununu had as well. They wanted to empower hapu and whānau. So it's just that we haven't necessarily landed on the particular wording that made them feel comfortable that that was included. And we don't pertain to say that that definition is exactly how it needs to stay. The point that we're trying to make is that if you hold a Māori freehold land title, you should be able to use those provisions within the plan without having to step over another hurdle. And at the moment, we see that it will default back to the RM for implementation purposes. We're assuming it will default back to the RMA definition of tangata whenua, which we're not included. Our owners are included in as hapu and whānau, but not as a Māori freehold land title owner.
Oh, kia ora. Sorry, so what I was trying to get back to was, so do you, when you talked about you're open to discussing that further with them, were they open to discussing that further with them? Kia ora.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper and Ms. Griffiths, it's Chair here again. I just want to bring the discussion back to what the role of a definition of Maori land would be in terms of the Maori purpose zone. It seems you seem to be suggesting that there's a nexus between having a definition and how land in the district plan is zoned as Maori purpose land. Mr. Wesney's explained that the way in which the Maori purpose zone evolved over the last 3 years, and in particularly between the draft plan and the proposed plan, and that the proposed plan as notified included all land that was included under the Te Ture Whenua Maori Act, that was either Maori customary land or Maori freehold land. It also included marae and pa, so Europa, sorry. The impression I got from Mr. Wesney is that there's not necessarily a nexus between a need for a definition and the zone being implemented. And I'm just wondering whether I've missed anything salient in that respect. What would be the disadvantage and what would be the advantage in terms of the Maori purpose zone of having a definition?
May I explain?
Yes, please.
So if we think about the Māori purpose zone coming into being, and think about a land block owners wanting to do something on that zone, or that situation, they have a proposal for doing something that would potentially be permitted as an activity under that zone.
Yeah.
They have a plan, description, proposal. They take that to council as the manager of the plan. A council officer looks at the proposal and then looks at whether the proposal qualifies, in terms of rules of the plan. Council officer has to just make a decision as to whether the information provided means that the proposal is permitted or requires consent. If they don't feel certain about the ownership information being provided, they then have to rely on what the plan says, and currently it doesn't say who Māori land is in terms of ownership, what it is. They then turn back to relevant definitions, in this case tangata whenua, and in current RMA definition relates to iwi. They then ask the people proposing the thing that please provide evidence of your ownership of the land through iwi channels, say for instance.
So under the scenario that you're describing, is the land zone Maori purpose zone or not, to start with?
It would be, because if it wasn't Māori purpose zone, land potentially what was being considered may fall outside of the permitted activity standards.
So isn't that the very solution though, Mr. Cooper? I mean, once the zone is in place, what's the relevance of the term Maori land? I mean, the Maori purpose zone has objectives, policies and rules. It has a list of permitted activities and standards. Once that zone is over a piece of land, it's the prevailing statutory consideration. The council can't uplift that zone without going through a process. They must make decisions based on applications based on the provisions that are in that zone. How will the definition of Maori land change that in any way? If it's already zoned Maori land under your scenario, so already zoned Maori purpose zone under your scenario. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to understand what the real issue is here.
So you've got in the Māori Purpose Zone Te Ture Whenua Act, and that's just customary land and Māori freehold land. So iwi and hapu, in my knowledge, don't own Māori freehold land. They're not holders of Māori freehold land. So Te Ture Whenua is customary land and Māori freehold land. So in your in the proposed plan, in the introduction to the Māori Purpose Zone, you've got Te Ture Whenua, and you've also got general title held by Rangatani Wairapa and Ngāti Kahungunu.
Yes.
But then if you're using tangata whenua when not the Māori freehold land's not in there. So we're saying if you have a definition for Māori land and where you want to use it, and what it includes, it makes it more clear and concise about what you're referring to, and then it makes sense when you then look at our Papakainga definition. You can use Māori land and everybody knows what you're specifically referring to in terms of you can include the PSG land in there within the definition, and you're not referring to all general titles. So it's more for the point that it makes it nice and clear and concise for planning and implementation, and where the council needs to look to basically, because to go for confirmation, I guess I'm unsure where the council is intending, like, because at the moment, if tangata whenua is then hapu and whānau, where is the council going to be going in terms of implementing that to work out to make sure that the whānau are related to the hapu? We're saying we've got owners that have got a Māori freehold land title, and you go to Pātaka whenua and it's an easy confirmation to know that that land is included and those provisions can be used. So from our point of view, it's more about being clear and concise and making the implementation easy for those using the plan.
Okay, let me just restate the question. Does it matter? Does that really matter where the land is already zoned Māori purpose zone? That there's no debate. It's let's say this panel at the end of this process confirms all of the Māori purpose zone land, reflecting the submissions that have supported and opposed it, and we've got 3 scenarios where there might be some changes. The plan becomes operative, and the land, and we know where the Māori purpose zone is. What does it matter whether there's a definition of Māori land or not? The zone's confirmed. We know what activities are permitted. We know that Papakainga will be a permitted activity. What's the issue where the land is zoned Māori purpose zone? I'm just struggling to understand it.
Do you want to go, Nick, or do you want me?
Let me just is there a definition of Māori land per se will not rezone a piece of land that's not Māori purpose zone to Māori purpose zone. It needs to go through a plan change process for that to occur.
Yes.
And the council have indicated, or Mr. Wesney's indicated on behalf of the councils, that in addition to whatever decisions we make as part of this process to either confirm the notified extent of Māori purpose zone or to reduce it or extend it based on submissions received, in addition to that, the council are of a mind in the next 3 years to have a global plan change that takes the results of any consultation and engagement that's occurred over that period and promote a plan change that would either expand or reduce the extent of the Māori purpose zone based on the outcomes of that engagement that's occurred post our decisions. So there's a method for doing a wrap up, if you like, because rightly or wrongly, people have said that the issue is being too rushed, and there's a method of taking stock of what additional land needs to be zoned Māori purpose. But it will involve a plan change process. It won't automatically become a Māori purpose zone overnight just because it might meet the definition of Māori land.
Can I ask a question in a slightly different way?
Yeah.
Because I'm confused now. So, Mr. Pepper, my question is how, if you don't get this definition into the plan, how would you go about, or what is your understanding of the process that you would have to follow to get land rezoned as Māori purpose zone? What do you think the council would look at in terms of application change, a zone change application? if there's no definition.
Okay. So you have a block of land that's not currently
It's
intended to be zoned as multi-purpose
so
zoning.
it's like rural at the moment, okay? And you want to say, I want to change that block of land to Maori purpose zone. What is your understanding if there is no definition of Maori land in the plan? What would you have to go through to do that? And how would the council, and your understanding, how would the council assess that?
As part of the information for to propose the land to be incorporated into multi-purpose zone would have to be some kind of cultural assessment that related that land to tangata whenua. Basically, that land could be currently owned as general land by Māori who may have no affiliation to a iwi or tangata iwi group, and if they wanted to see their land as rezoned to multi-purpose zone without having any kind of affiliation to iwi, it would be very difficult for them to get it to become multi-purpose zone because their whakapapa relationship, say through previous records of the Māori Land Court, would not be recognised. That's how I understand it could work in the future. Do you want to add anything, Vanessa? Is it appropriate?
Happy to hear.
Yeah, you go. So it was, I guess, in reference to the first question, with the land being within the Māori purpose zone, is there then a need for the Māori land definition? I guess it just refers back to the objectives and policies that use the wording Māori land for the use and development. So
on that, Ms. Griffiths, we've heard from Mr. Wesney that one objective uses the word, but no policies or rules use it. It's mainly in the administrative introductory text of the plan. It's certainly not used in the rules, which is the traditional purpose for defining a term.
okay, I thought it was there were some policies with the wording.
We haven't been advised of any. It's in one objective and in 4 or 5 parts in introductory text.
Okay, can I ask the question in a slightly different way again then? Do you see any scenario where land that is not to Maori land could be incorporated into the Maori purpose zone?
Any land that is not Māori land incorporated into the Māori purpose zone. Well, in the introduction to the Māori purpose zone, you've got you've got that it includes land, PSG land, post-settled government entity land, which is general title land. So that's not Māori land.
Can I also,
it's not Māori land defined by Te Ture Whenua, but it is Māori, it's general title owned by Māori or iwi PSG.
it also does say in the introductory text to the Māori purpose zone, the end of a paragraph, additional land may be rezoned to Māori purpose in the future via district plan changes where requested by the landowners to enable pā, marae, papakainga and associated activities on land owned by Māori. That's very explicit in the opening chapter. With that wording in there, do you still then believe that it is essential to have Māori land as a definition?
Personally, we see it as clearer, but that's our personal stance. Just for implementation.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the position of the Maori trustee is clear. We've been trying to test that, and think we've received some further information that will assist in our deliberation, so thank you for that.
Okay.
Can I just invite you now, Mr. Cooper, to take it to the final matter, which is the definition of papakainga.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Okay. 27. During the Māori Trustees' presentation at hearing stream 1, it was stated by Mr. Wesley in response to a question by the panel chair herself that the Māori Trustees' submission point regarding the papakainga definition was to be addressed in the stream 4 officer's report on the Māori purpose zone. 28. The Māori Trustee notes that the officer's report does not refer to her amended definition of papakainga as raised in her original submission. 29. As stated in the submission, the Māori Trustees proposed amendments to the definition of papakainga, which is consistent with the proposed definition of Māori land, continues to provide that papakainga should benefit those who whakapapa to rangatani o Wairarapa or Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa. This aligns with the hearing stream 1 strategic direction officer's report recommendations. 30. The Māori Trustee considered that the definition of papakainga still requires amendment as per her original submission as set out in Appendix 1 to ensure a more inclusive definition that aligns with the officer's recommendations.
And that would involve the strikeout of the words tangata whenua on their ancestral whenua.
Yes, and an addition of text as well.
It doesn't
Which,
say that.
addition of a development on Māori land which provides after the word
yeah.
means.
Yes, okay, I see that.
Shown in red, printed out in black and white.
It is too, I can see. It's a lighter shade of grey on my version.
And the last section as well, after the strikeout, the benefit of those who whakapapa to rangatani.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's very clear. I don't have any questions on that. I'll just see if the panel does. No.
No.
That's very good. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Look, thank you for the spirit in which you presented and taken part into a very robust debate. It's certainly given us a lot of food for thought. We'll look forward to getting together and discussing this further. Thank you for your presentation. Do you think the Māori Trustee will be present at any other hearing streams?
I can't say for sure because I know that there is site significance to Māori coming up and other matters. We just take it on a situation by situation ability. Can I just make one point that's off this submission? When we were doing our original submission, I did note that it's not our land block, but there were Māori urupā in the district that was not zoned Māori purpose zone, that was zoned as general rural land.
Okay.
I can't recall which block it was, but I did see that there was land that was through vagaries of ownership, defined as urupā, but not as Māori land.
Okay. Just looking at Mr. Wesley.
I just remember that it was on between Masterton and Riversdale, and between that general vicinity. Sorry for that, but it just struck me as kind of odd when I was looking at the proposed plan maps and our information of what came through.
If the panel's okay, I'll follow up with Mr. Cooper offline.
Yes.
Just to check the Māori Trustee submission around scope for rezoning if there has been a urupā 1 or 2 missed, and if so, I'll address it and write a reply.
Yeah, it's not our we manage, but I just noted that there was land that.
Okay.
This is just more comments about future zoning and.
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just add in that the Te Tai Potini West Coast Plan and Matamata Piako Plan are 2 plans where we've appeared at hearing panel about definitions and about Māori land. So if you wanted to have a look back there, that's.
Thank you. Do you happen to know where the Matamata Piako plan's at? We know that the Western one's still going through the hearings process.
Matamata Piako has come out with their decision in relation to papakainga. That was Plan Change 54, where we submitted on the that definition.
Okay. We'll ask Mr. Wesley to report back to us on both of those plans. Thank you for that resource. And thanks again for your presentations. We may see you at the SASM hearing.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Welcome to the next submitter, the PWCDP Whenua Trust, and represented by Marama Tuta. Welcome, Marama.
Thank
you. You'll be impressed that we're actually on time.
Ahead of time, actually.
Don't know how we managed to achieve that, but we have. Would you like to take a seat or?
Yes, I've got some papers here for you.
Okay.
Oh, paper. I'll have one, yes. Kia ora.
Sure.
Thank you for having me present to your panel. I've come today to ask that this Wairarapa Combined District Plan Hearing Committee include in their deliberation of the Māori Purposes Zone that any of the advantages regarding the use of paper, especially around Māori landlocked blocks, are not disadvantaged by the formation of this zone, but in fact enhanced. Most uninformed legal roads were established in the 1800s before Crown land was sold. It was usual for land to be reserved for roads to ensure public access for the future. These are more commonly known as paper roads and more accurately described as uninformed legal roads. An uninformed legal road is usually a 10-metre strip, or 10-metre wide corridor. It is commonly found in rural areas. Now, we found during the Ngāti Kahungunu Ki Wairarapa Tamaki Nui Arua negotiations, that each negotiator went to the table with certain strengths. And Hami Kapati went with the strength of being able to keep documents in a tidy old manner so they could be easily retrieved. And unfortunately, he's dealing with family matter at the moment. Robin Patongaro has just a wealth of knowledge. He recalls things. And so these figures that I've got in the next part of my submission are his recollections of the figures, and they might need to be adjusted, but he's normally pretty right. I just thought I'd mention that to you. Okay, so carrying on, the Ngāti Kahungunu Ki Wairarapa Tamaki Nui Arua claims boundary extends from Tūrakirai in the south to Denneberg in the north, thereto to Aho o Maui, Cape Turnagain on the east coast. There once Ngāti Kahungunu Tamaki Nui Arua e Ngāti Ki Wairarapa and Ngāti Ki Tamaki Nui Arua Tipuna owned 100% of the land in their orohe. Today, it is less than 4,000 acres of land in some form of Māori ownership. It also has over 49 land blocks within its tribal boundaries. Any of the Māori-owned blocks that would be included in the Māori Purposes Zone in the Wairarapa are landlocked. Fortunately, owners are still able to gain access to their whenua through the presence of paper roads, of which Papua has approximately 6. In a very small area, we have 6
paper roads. Te Orere has approximately 5 and Te Hawaii has 5 to name but another 2. Although paper roads may not have been utilised to date, they just give Māori landowners a tool or lever whereby they can access their land. This is particularly so when ownership of the land surrounding them changes and they have to renegotiate with new owners. I thank you for the time to ask that you consider this application or submission or this want. Kia ora.
Thank you, Marama. We'll just see whether there's, that seems very clear to me. We'll just see if there's any questions arising. Joe? Brianna?
Kia ora.
I'm very clear on you, Mary.
Pardon?
Yeah, just.
Yes.
Is the work being done on to actually document all these land blocks or whether their access?
There's already been work done as I said. Tami has got all the information in a files, and he's worked with. We worked with Christopher Finlayson during the time of our negotiations, and he wasn't able to do anything for us for our landlocked lands. It was a bit beyond, yeah. I don't know why, but
It would be good to have a better understanding.
Yeah.
What they are.
yeah.
So,
I mean, even Papua, we're very small, and in the area of the land that we look after, even there it was landlocked.
Just hold a minute, Mr. Wesley. You deal with this matter at paragraph 223, page 36, where you summarise this matter. I'm just struggling to see where you resolve this and recommendation is. Is this part of the overall discussions that you refer to?
Yeah, down in 227.
Yes. Okay. You haven't made any specific recommendation as such, have you?
Not in relation to the landlocked issue.
No. You think this can be dealt with through the council-led plan change to rezone land? Yes. So Marama, what that means is, I don't know if you've caught up with this, it's sort of breaking news, if you like. The council will, and Mr. Wesley's conveyed this morning, the council have agreed to following our decisions on the plan, or not even following a decision from this point onwards, to carry on consultation with iwi about the extent of the Maori purpose zone. And over the next 2 to 3 years, produce a plan change that might rezone more Maori purpose zone land to enable, I guess, more wholesome discussions to occur in that time, because some people felt that the decisions were a little bit rushed and the timeframes were right. So that's the sort of recommendation that Mr. Wesley's made, and what he's saying is that this whole issue of paper roads and landlocked land can be dealt with at that stage without rushing it.
Right. Thank you. I'm just aware that person who holds a pen rules the world. They say what like I submitted here on the word of the use of mana whenua and land and tangata whenua.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not holding the pen, so I can't say what's going to be. I just hope that. And
Your presentation to
Yeah.
hearing one on that.
And the same for landlocked lands. But I thank you all for whoever for this new development.
Yes, we're excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome, Miss Craig.
Kia ora.
I think I saw you online now. I'm hearing stream 1 or 2. I can't remember.
Yep.
Thank you for coming in person, appreciate it.
Kia ora.
Do you have any written material in addition to your?
I can send through my speaking notes if that helps.
Would you,
Yep.
well, those to Ruth?
Yep.
Much appreciated.
Ka pai?
Hi.
Can I just clarify how many minutes I have?
You've allocated 15 minutes.
Ka pai, cool. Okay. Ko te pū, te more, te we, te aka, te reo. Ko te wao nui, te kuni, te whē, te kore, te pō. Ki ngā tangata Māori ngā rangi rawa, ko papa. Ko tēnei te timatanga o te ao, ko tēnei te timatanga o te ao. Ko te manui kai ana te mero, nō nā te nahiri. Ko te manui kai ana i te mātauranga, nō nā te ao. Ko tararoa te pai maunga, ko wairarapa te moana, ko roamahanga, rawa, ko waiohini na awa, ko rangitane o wairarapa, rawa, ko kahananu ki wairarapa, nā iwi, ko Ngāti Kahukura āwhitia te hapu, he uriau no Ngātuiri, himi, māteaha, taueki, pūrākau hoki. Ko Amber Craig taku ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So kia ora, my name is Amber Craig and I am an uri of Ngāti Kahukura āwhitia. Started my kōrero with a waiata that is taught to our babies at Kohanga. It is a waiata that tells us the mātauranga of the stages of creation of us as tangata, as a people. It is passed down through the generations from the creation of our people to our babies today. This is one of many waiata, motiatia and other forms of communication of our mātauranga. However, they are all intergenerational observations of our taiao. Passed down and adapted over generations. This is mātauranga Māori. This waiata also talks to our whakapapa about who we are. Other motiatia, such as no mai e tama, that we descend from Ranginui Papatuanuku, and when our atua matua were separated by their tamariki, they mourn for each other. This is their gift to us. Papatuanuku is the embodiment of our taiao. Our moana is the heart, our awa is the veins, and our wai is the blood of Papatuanuku. Couldn't look at one without the other. It's like treating a wound without understanding the underlying cause. The spiritual connections we have to this whenua and to the rivers that surround us, such as the Roamahanga, the Waiohini, the Waiawangawanga, and the Mangatariri, are immeasurable. All life comes from Papatuanuku, and it is her that we will return to. When our wai and our whenua is suffering, we as a people will suffer. When you look at our descendants of Rangitane o Wairarapa and Kahananu ki Wairarapa, and especially our descendants, Ngāti Kahukura āwhitia, you can see the impacts of colonisation has had on our awa, our people, and the detrimental impacts. The removal of our whānau voice, stories and mātauranga has seen us observing the degradation of our waterways, our whenua and our people for the past 180 plus years. It has been heartbreaking, and although generations before us have fought to be heard, degradation has continued. My kaumātua, some of who are sitting behind me at the moment, have observed some of the biggest impacts of our taiao in our lifetime. Now we are picking up the challenge. So I stand here today talking to you as an uri of Ngāti Kahukura āwhitia, as an uri of Wairarapa. I remind you of our ancestors that were able to build our own papakainga prior to you coming here. Angakuta, Ahikauka, Moku Taimimiha, Puranui-Orangi, Papawai, all places which contained our own economies and our own housing. That no one was homeless, that no one was hungry on our whenua. As a trustee of Te Tini o Ngāti Kahukura āwhitia, we want to remind you of our story, that we had to crowdfund to help buy our own whenua back. And through that, we've had to actually take out a mortgage on it. And so while we would love to be a Māori land, we are actually in general, but that shouldn't stop us from being able to develop our own economies and our own papakainga. So while we are, by what the Crown calls general land, we are very much Māori land at heart. We have built our own solutions for housing through Te Whare Hangahanga, where we not only build faster, but we have zero waste buildings because it wasn't good enough for us to be able to destroy Papatuanuku while we are building our whare. Noting that 50% of our landfills are full of demolition and construction waste, something that won't just help our whānau, but also the wider community. A Māori purpose zone is a welcome change with the combined district council plan. However, our changes and proposals are to remove any restrictions and to include mātauranga Māori solutions. Our current solutions where we co-design with council today, and that's both all councils plus regional council, are proving to have better innovative approaches that not only protect Papatūānuku, but serve everyone in our community. I would also caution that you do not remove our whānau and our hapu, that you do not remove their tino rangatiratanga and mana motuhake. While we may whakapapa to both iwi, we have our own mātauranga. I am also concerned about the communications of this zone with our whānau and how it was discussed prior to coming to a forum such as this. Your assumptions that there isn't distrust between our whānau, hapu and councils is a gross missight on your side. There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation being shared out there within our own community, some of which we have tried to fix some of those conversations. Each of you as councils have made a commitment to te tiriti o Waitangi, and this is the least you can do to allow us to build and expand our whenua in a way that starts to return our mana motuhake, that we can build how we once did. I'd like to finish off with an example of how mātauranga Māori can thrive within Aotearoa. Matariki, that we just have celebrated a few months ago, is a prime example. Some people have adapted and picked up matariki, but through Māori-led mātauranga, the core celebration is still kept safe for our people. So I want to finish with this story about how Ranginui and Papatūānuku were separated. Tāwhiti Mātia was so angry and devastated, he went to live with his father in the sky. And in his grief and sadness, he plucked out his eyes, he crushed them, and he threw them up into the sky to spread all over his father's chest, and becoming Ngā Mata o Te Āriki Tāwhiti Mātia, or otherwise known as Matariki. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e ki aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora.
Thank you. Just see if there's any questions to you, Amber. Kiriana?
Oh, whatever.
Kia ora.
Nothing?
Right.
John?
No, just kia ora. I really enjoyed reading your submission and thank you for presenting today.
Kia ora.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
But have you had a chance to have a look at the Mr. Wesney's report? How that addresses this submission?
I read through some of it, yeah.
There's two particular paragraphs that I think you will enjoy, 240 and 241. It talks about the submission seeking to include the land in the Maori purpose zone and acknowledging that the land's not Maori land, that it's general land.
Yeah.
That it was purposed under general title and is unable to be moved. And Mr. Wesney's also referred to your plans to build Papakainga and implement a number of other cultural initiatives on the land.
Yeah.
For the whānau. And he's also talked about the discussions that have been held with representatives of Rangatane and Kahanunu, and that there is support for the rezoning that's been proposed from rural to Maori purpose zone. And Mr. Wesney's recommendation is that based on all of those matters, he recommends that the rezoning be undertaken.
Yeah. I think that's still important to come here and share the story because we are a very significant and different kōrero and an example to many of the other whānau which are Māori land owned or have moved into general land for different reasons.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But that's one of the few, well, I think that's the only recommendation where we've seen submission ask for non-Maori land, general land to be rezoned and a successful recommendation. So well done.
Cool.
I don't have any questions.
Sweet. I had extra time in case there were lots of questions. So
Thank you. Congratulations.
cool. Thank you.
Amber.
Hey, Next matter and final matter before lunch is Paramatuta and Waipu Roller.
Yep.
Been waiting very patiently.
Tararua te maunga. Ko Wairarapa, toku moana. Ko rua mahanga. Rawa waia hine. Toku awa. Ko Ngāti Kahungunu. Rawa Rangitane. Toku iwi. Ko Ngāti Kahukura Awhatia. Toku whānau. Ko ngātu ere, rawa mātiaha, tōku tīpuna. Ko Michael ahau. Mr. Chair, honoured commissioners. My name is Michael Roida. I'm the great-great-grandson of Tāwhiri Māti Ngātu Iri. And Mātiaha Hemi Te Oka, great chiefs from around here. I am a landowner, a member of boards of directors, a trustee on several local land trusts, and an owner of Māori corporations from the top of the north to the bottom of the south. I am Michael. For my own personal history, I worked on our treaty trust on behalf of Kahungunu. I have worked on the Māori Standing Committee for South Wairarapa District Council, and I've somehow been commissioned back there for some reason. Maybe it's to do with this. And at the moment, I am full-time kaitiaki of Papua Marae. I live in a Māori village, but it's Kaumatua. It's not Papakainga. It is more, even though we're all related, it is about the running of the marae. Some of our blocks under the new RMA legislation, they're asking that these blocks be 40 acres plus for subdivision. Some of the blocks we own are only 20 acres. Some of them are only 8 hectares. We are not going to take our people out to rural areas and build 100 houses. It just doesn't fit. What we need is our young people home, 5 or 6 houses to enable us to look after our blocks, to turn them back into horticultural blocks, to get our economic sustainability back up and running. Recently, I have talked to one of our lessees whose lease is about to roll over. They said they don't want houses where they're leasing. My alternative is we'll build our houses. I know what grows on that land. By the way, I've also studied horticulture. And that's where I'm at. We have an answer. 5 of our trusts have been working on things like this, including Papawai and Tupurupuru. We can do it. we are also well aware of climate change. I'm an owner in a farm that was recently devastated by Cyclone Gabriel. And that farm's not too far from here, just over the Mataikona River. So we are well aware of what climate change will do, but we are also well aware that we can help. But the government's got to start listening to us. The councils need to come and talk to the right people. If you're dealing with the South, it's no good going to a Kahungunu office or Rangitani office in Masterton. You need to come and see us at Papawai. We will know who the landowners of those blocks are. As an owner and a trustee, this is a list of all current owners in our Tupuru block. When one of us passes away, my job to pull out the papers and write deceased by their name. But it is also my job to know that they have next owners, who their children are, or who the rightful heir is if they have no issue. That's our job, not the Māori trustee. To be honest, they can't even get it together. They really need to come and have a kōrero with us. I think I've said about all I need to say, but I thank you for your ear. Cousin, kia ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Any questions for Michael? I've got a couple, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, Michael, you mentioned the 40 hectare subdivision rule that we've put out in the plan for implementation. How's that affecting? You've raised it here. I'm not sure the link you've tried to.
Some of our blocks aren't even 40 hectares. So yeah, it would take them out of play to build papakainga.
No, it takes them out of play to subdivide.
Well, we're going to still want to subdivide. We're going to need houses on these blocks of land. If they're less than 40 hectares.
Does papakainga, my understanding is that doesn't give title though to each individual house, does it? It's still centrally owned land.
Yeah.
With individually owned houses on it.
Some will be individually owned, yes.
So the 40 hectare rule is about subdividing land title, not house title. So does that make a difference?
Yeah, it does. Yes, thank you.
There could be opportunities where we need to subdivide to get back to like the National Trust for kohanga. So if we subdivide pieces of land to build a kohanga reo on or something like that, that land actually has to be owned by the National Trust kohanga reo. So it removes our ability to be able to have those sort of options.
Yeah.
And in terms of a kura as well, if we build that, we actually sometimes have to give that land back to the Ministry of Education before we're allowed to continue a pursuit with funds.
And they come under designation.
Michael, was the Tupuru block, is it, how large is it?
28 hectares in total, 2 separate blocks, one right up the top and the bottom block, which would be in a flood zone.
And is it zone general rural or is it Maori purpose zone?
At the moment, it's Māori freehold land.
Maori freehold land.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I'll just check that with Mr. Wesley because it's Maori freehold land. That would suggest it would be MPZ, Wesley.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you'd be, your 40, as Councillor Plummer said, your 40 hectares won't affect you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll go through the Maori Land Court subdivision process there, and the MPZ will allow all of the activities that are undertaken in the rural zone, plus a range of other activities that normally are found in urban zones, like commercial activities, healthcare, kapapanga, those sort of things. So unless you want to opt out the Maori purpose zone, I think it's a done deal for you.
Yeah, but it's just some of the things that the Māori trustees saying is a bit.
Okay.
I would.
Just confirm, my understanding, probably absolutely wrong, but if the owners of Maori freehold land want to subdivide that land, that's a decision for the Maori Land Court to work through that, is it not? It's not.
Yes, and the owners. And the
Yeah,
owners.
but it's 99% of the time it would go to the Land Court because there might one or two that disagree. So
Yeah.
it's generally gets resolved. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Michael, thank you for your presentation, and thanks again, Marama.
Thank you. I can go and plant some kumara now.
And it's time for us to have some pie, I think.
Good day planting, get it done in land strive by the time we get back.
So the thinking is that we will adjourn the hearing now for lunch, and then come back after lunch just for a brief wrap.
1 o'clock,
1 o'clock,
45 minutes, is that enough?
more than enough.
Yeah.